Hello, hello. I think that we are now live. Apologies. My camera wasn't working, so I had to do lots of restarting and get things all working properly and okay. So I know that a couple of people had posted what runes they had for today's Middle Earth readings, and I can't see those in the comments box now, just because of the way that the live is set up. So I'll only see the comments that come from the point that I've gone live onwards. So if you could repost, if you have posted what your rune is, that would be really, really helpful so I can get those done. I am Maggie Rose Cunningham. I'm the founder of MaggiandRose.com, and I'm here to talk to you about what's happening in the movements of the planets through the runic wheel this week, and to do some readings for those of you who have joined me live, looking at what your rune of the week is and how that might work with the other energies that are at play at the moment. So we have just a single planetary movement this week, which isn't happening until later in the week, which is we're moving into the half month of Bacano. So at the moment we are in the half month of Teiwaz. So here we are, here's our Teiwaz rune, and we'll be in that for most of this week. So that is Tyr's rune. Tyr, the god, often considered to be the sort of epitome of the divine masculine. He was a sovereign, he was a warrior, he was a priest. Really interesting figure. I really love working with him. And then we move into Bacano, which is often considered to be the sort of epitome of the divine feminine. Now, I was having a look at all of the planetary movements because, you know, we've got a little bit of space this week because we've just got the one planetary movement. So I thought, oh, no, that'll be interesting to just have a look at. So let's take a little overview of where we are. So we're in Thor's Hall at the moment, Bilskinia, which... Yes, I think that's right. We are in Bilskinia. I just did a moment ago, are we? But yes, we are in Thor's Hall, Bilskinia, enjoying that energy at the moment, and that brings this protective, I want to say, energy of Thor coming through. And that it resonates with Bacano, it resonates with Teiwaz because of the warrior self, and I was thinking of like Thor and Tyr. They're two of the protector gods within the Aesir. And then we have Bacano, which can be connected in with Thor when we think about it as like the bear, you know, the protective bear energy, and the berserker energy can come through with the Bacano rune. And that really made me think about the number of runes in the Futhark that relate to protection in one way or another. And if the theme of protection came through for me, we're working in the hearth space with Mani, the god of the moon, and the theme of compassion. And I'm very aware, you know, of the compassion that's been shown out there in the world at the moment for, you know, all of the terrible things that are happening in the world, and the compassion that people feel in the sense of wanting to do something, wanting to support, be alongside. You know, if you think about compassion, meaning the idea of like suffering with, and also to protect in some way, the instinct to protect. So I was having a look at the other runes that we've got. So we've got our fast-moving planets, Frigg's chariot, Odin's chariot, the sun. So as I've already said, the sun is moving from Teiwaz into Bacano. And Teiwaz rune is a very active rune if you think about the sword or the arrow. It's taking direct action to defend. You know, it's the typical sort of warrior rune that you might think of. The Bacano rune is more gentle, but it is used as a... protective rune for children and for young women. And when you look at its mysteries, it's not just this idea of the sort of berserker energy, the warrior who is taken over by the spirit of the wild. No, it's also an energy, a protective energy of camouflage, of hiddenness comes through with Bacano much more. So the idea of almost like nature coming in and protecting the vulnerable buds, you know, inside, or like the nut and the kernel of the nut and the shell around it. All of that's Bacano energy. And this idea of Loki, who is associated, he's attested to in one of the rune poems, and he's a shapeshifter as well. So this idea of being able to shift our shape and disguise ourselves in some way, and have a shield that is the shield of nature, comes through with the Bacano rune. where was I going with this? Bacano, so this is the sun's chariot. So then we have Odin's chariot, and Odin's chariot is in Suelo at the moment. And Suelo is the rune of the sun, and it can be used as protection. It's very useful energetically. We can use the Suelo shield, particularly over the solar plexus, and it reminds me that the word protection itself, that comes from the Latin, sort of means to cover at the front, whereas Anglo-Saxon, we've got more of the idea of a shielding that comes through. And this sense of, that it's not just the sword that protects, it's also the shield, the sense of defensiveness as well as attack that comes through there. And then Frigg's chariot we have in Perthro. Let me see if I can find Perthro. Here we go, Perthro. And Perthro, we also have the Hela's chariot. So Hela's chariot's in Perthro as well. So we've got a big Perthro energy and undercurrent of Perthro energy going through at the moment. But Frigg's chariot is making that more, is intensifying that energy at the moment. And that can bring, Perthro is a less of a protective rune. It's more a rune of surrender and going with the flow and accepting uncertainty. It's that sense of moving into acceptance. And I can certainly feel that in the world right now. And it's something that we might want to think about is, what's the most appropriate stance for me to take in this moment in relation to whatever is happening to me in my life? Is it the attack gesture of protection? Is it the shielding defense gesture of protection? Or is it a moving through and allowing myself to be shaped by the events that are taking place? And I wanted to dive into this a little bit deeper because I think that this is important and it's an interesting theme to think about in the context of the Norse gods. Because, we're spending the year looking at the wounded gods. And in order to be wounded, we need to be vulnerable. We need to be in a space where we are allowing ourselves to be shaped or influenced in some way by our surroundings. And that's something that I find very interesting about the Northern tradition gods, is that they are vulnerable. They are not considered to be perfect, untouchable, immortal. They are considered to be capable of being killed or wounded, and many of them are. And I think that excuse me, my computer just fell down, just slid down on its own accord. I don't want my computer to be wounded. That sometimes we can look to the divine to be perfect in some way. That idea that when we're vulnerable, we feel emotions like fear, and we act from a place of wanting to survive. And we can certainly see that with Odin, for example, that desire to survive. And that a lot of the themes of the Northern gods are around survival and protection. We have the guard, mid-guard, middle enclosure, a space that is enclosed as guard, a space that is enclosed, a lot around maintaining boundaries and protections, as well as that idea of flowing with weird and going with your destiny and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to be open to wounding in some way. And I think that it's one of the beauties of the Norse gods is that they are, their version of compassion is a suffering with, because they also experience the vulnerability and the fear and the potential of loss that we experience. But it can also mean that sometimes they are open to the same failings, the same fallibilities as we have, and that they want to survive and they'll do whatever they need to. And all of these themes of vengeance come through with the gods as well. So their capacity to wound also provides to be wounded, also provides it maybe a stronger ability to wound as well. Excuse me. And I feel as if their tales are often tales that are there to support us in travelling through moment by moment each aspect of our life and feeling, as I have been wounded, what does that mean? What stance am I going to choose to take now? Am I going to be in that Bacano space? Am I going to be in the Tewa space? Am I going to be in the Perthro space of flowing weird and allowing things to happen? And so we start to, and I'm really feeling that at the moment with the movements of the planets, that we do have this Perthro energy still coming through, bringing up, at a global level, quite challenging events, things that are difficult for us to do anything other than surrender to in some way. You know, that there's a lot that's outside of our control in this Perthro paradigm. And the other planets at the moment are offering us different ways of responding to that. So I've mentioned Frigg with the Perthro, or Odin with his Suelo shield, and following what we feel to be right, you know, actually needing to reach inside ourselves and find the truth, not looking for, you know, the narratives that are outside ourselves for that. Then we have Tyr's chariot, that's the equivalent of Mars, is in Algiz, which is another rune of protection, of reaching out, of prayer, of looking for guidance to support us. And again, that's a form of protection. It's sort of looking externally for help and support. And again, we feel that in the world. You know, a lot of people saying, you know, we are desiring of your compassion. Be with us, help us, support us, come with us, and be in compassion with us, and empathy with us comes through as, again, another response that we can have in times of fear or challenge or wounding. Sorry, I've got really itchy throat, tickly throat, I apologise. So have I brought up the Algiz rune? Here we are with our Algiz rune. So this is another response that we can have in moments of distress and challenge. And then we have Thor's chariot, which I've already mentioned, you know, Thor's hall in Teiwaz. So this Tyr energy here comes out quite strongly. And we've got Thor's chariot and Aegir's chariot, both in Teiwaz energy. So Thor is offering us that ability to stand, you know, to take a stand in the moment, to be able to and willing to sacrifice for a cause. Now, so that's another response that's available to us if we draw on that energy of Thor, to say, you know, here and no further go I, is the way that I think about it when I think about Thor. You know, he takes his stand in the moment. So we can draw on that if that's the energy that you need at the moment, through Thor and through the Teiwaz rune. And Aegir's chariot is also in Teiwaz at the moment. The water, the deep sea, this place of the unknown. And that sometimes when the unknown, you know, that which we are afraid of and we don't know how things are going to pan out, that the appropriate response, we're being told, is the Teiwaz rune, to take a stand and to be strong and to lead and to say, this is what I stand for. I don't know what the consequences are, but I'm not, you know, I'm willing to risk myself because the principle is so important to me. So we have that energy is very strongly coming through as well. Now, I've mentioned the Algiz rune, and that actually comes through twice as well. So we've got Tyr's chariot in Algiz. We've got Tyr standing there and saying, you know, it's absolutely fine and in keeping with strength to ask for help. It doesn't diminish us in any way to ask for help. So you can be in that strong place of saying, yes, you know, I know what I stand for. I know what's important right now. And you can still ask for help. Now, Loki's chariot is also in Algiz. And I do think that this particular combination is producing some of the challenges that we're seeing at the moment. Loki, the god of deception, I've mentioned him in the Bacano rune. This god of shape-shifting, disguise, you know, trickery, is in the rune of Algiz, the rune of prayer and seeking guidance and support and saying, you know, help me. And I think that that can provide us in many ways a disruptive force coming through where we don't know what the source of truth is, you know. Imagine Loki standing on like the bridge, the Bifrost Bridge. When I see this combination of Loki and Algiz, I see the Bifrost Bridge that connects the heavens and the earth. And Loki, the trickster, the shapeshifter, the disguised, is disguising that pathway. And it's almost saying we do need to rely on our own individual sense of what is right. Is incredibly important at this time, that we can't take the truth that is offered to us from, you know, the media or from, you know, authority as being the crystal clear truth. We need to be able to, what's the word that I'm looking for? We need to be able to discern. We need to use our own discernment, and our discernment comes from within our body and our intuition, as well as our rational minds as well. And so that's incredibly important. So we have Ud's chariot in Largus, which again brings this watery Perthro energy of shifting and changing. So again, it's saying, yes, you can take that stand, but that doesn't mean that the uncertainty will still flow around you. And so it's recognizing that as well. So this real mix of suggested ways in which we can decide to respond to the external events that are taking place around us. And I think what I wanted to really bring to this is that reminder that we get to choose. And on any given day, we can say, what's most appropriate for me today? Do I need to be held and safe and within the Bakana rune, or do I need to ask for support with the Algas rune, or do I need to stand in my strength with the Tewaz rune, or do I need to follow my instinct but also have that bit of protection with the Swallow rune? So that's something that you might want to feel in is, how do I express the compassion that I'm feeling now, or the fear that I'm feeling now? How do I work within that? Is what's coming through from the planets, and they're offering us different ways of managing that. Now let me see. So we've got some shares. So I wanted to start with Paige, who emailed me direct, and I did pick it up this morning. Just a reminder that it is best to post, and Suzanne does a wonderful job of bringing them all together. Paige had the Kinaz rune. So this is the rune of creativity, and I think that this really emphasises this, idea that we are, each of us gets to be the creator of our own destiny, and that we each have a part to play in one sense or another. And so if we feel as if the world events are too big, it's reminding you, what can you do, like with your hands? Kina is the rune of creativity. What can you do with your research? Kina is the rune of knowledge. What can you do to go and draw information in and then take action? And this is creative action, is what's being suggested. So yeah, that form sense of almost sort of saying a protection that you have and that's available to you is your ability to take action and to shape something different within the world. So, what can you do to shape something different? What small actions can you take that will make a difference to those things that matter to you? And every person who takes a small creative action is changing the overall flow of weird. So I think that's what is coming through for me with that Kinaz room. Diane, you've got Hargalas, which emphasises the disruptor energy. It almost epitomises what we might consider as being this challenge of the circumstances of, like, the storm, of the world and what's happening to us as feeling so big and so huge and so overwhelming, with this urging that we are having from the gods through the movements of the planets and through the runes to say, and yet still you have agency, yet still you get to decide. And with the Hargalas rune there for you, Diane, I'm really feeling that sense of going, the storm will pass. And what might you want to take? What are the strengths that you might want to take away from this storm moment? I'm imagining, a householder with the great storm is coming outside, and they're hoping that their walls will be strong, and that their crops will be okay, and that that the provisions that they've got will last. And there's a moment where the storm is hitting, and you go, you hear something outside crack, a pipe crack, or their particular field gets destroyed in some way, and you go, in the future I will. Now, in the future, I will tend to that pipe. Now, in the future, I will do these things which are going to strengthen me and my ability to weather the storms that come forward through my life. Hopefully, not always as horrible as storms, but it's that sense of taking note, even in the moments of devastation and the storm hitting so hard. We're taking note of note to future self. So for you, Diana, I would be saying, what teachings is the storm offering you that you want to bring forward, and how can you capture them and honour them and make sure that you are able to move forward with them with intentionality. Now, Erica, you've got Issa, so again we've got that ice, and there is a stillness there. So whereas with Diane it was a sense of needing to pause for a moment within the storm and take that time and not be sort of overwhelmed by it, with the Issa rune, it's that calmness and that clarity. And almost recognising that sometimes the best possible thing that we can do is to resonate with that strength and to feel into our own strength and feel into our own power and be very aware of its edges. The Issa rune is a rune of incredible strength, but there are reminders within the rune poems and within the way that we work with the Issa rune that even the strong ice, when put under too much pressure, will crack. And so there's a sense of real mindfulness coming there, Erica, of saying, well, you know, I can feel my strength and I also know where it ends, you know, and I will guard. That's the protection that you need to put in place, is to say, yes, I know what my boundaries are and I know when I might be being asked to take on more than is realistic for me, or being asked to let my boundaries drop more than I want to do. And it's saying, no, this is the place that I need to guard, because this is where the potential would come for me to break if I don't tend to those well. So really being in mindfulness around those. Felicity, you've got Giba, and you've also picked up Thurisaz for Hannah. Thank you, Felicity. So we've got Suzanne and Felicity holding runes for other people. So Felicity, the Giba rune, I think that actually speaks of a balance. And I'm wondering if this is something that's come up for you before. Almost the sense that you are a person who is able to exist within the space of, on one hand, going, yes, I know how to take, you know, rational, active, forward-thinking decisions, you know, with great clarity, and coexist with a sense of the uncertain and a sense of coming through with the intuitive at the same time. And it's almost looking at how can you even further strengthen the partnership that those two things represent, that's within you, that ability that you have to be both, and to recognise that they aren't, you don't sort of show up as being one time and then show up as being one another time. You might present a face or bring more attention to one of those aspects in a given moment, but they're always combined within you, is the sense that I get. So there's no, this is more truly me than this. Both are you, and it's the Giba rune that allows that to come through, and that's the gift, not just that you have received from the universe, but also the gift that you offer back out, is what I'm sensing there. And it's just saying, yeah, as long as I am giving my best in the moment, whether it's from, you know, whichever side of my, you know, my talent and my expertise and my knowledge that comes from, I always know what to bring into the moment, and that's the real partnership, is the partnership between you and the environment around you, and you can bring either of those in. And Hannah has Thurisaz, so we've got some, we've had the Hagalaz rune, we've had the Issa rune, we've got Thurisaz now. Strong emotion, strong passion. I was talking about protection, and the Thurisaz rune really demonstrates this so, you know, perfectly. This, what's the word beginning with per that I'm looking for? I'm not going to be able to find it. Paradox. That's what I was looking for, the paradox of the Thurisaz rune. That simultaneously opens our hearts so wide to such depth of feeling. And every time it does that, it's shadow instinct to defend, to, you know, be the thorn that defends the rose. Imagine this, you know, this beautiful rose opening up, and it's just magnificent in, you know, its scent and its colour is so wonderful, and that the thorns on the stem see the rose and they love it so much that they want to be more prickly, they want to be harder to protect it. And that's the paradox of the Thurisaz rune, is that the desire to protect comes from a place of love, you know, of loving life, of loving other people, of loving our planet, of you know, loving our tribe and our community, and that the Thurisaz rune always comes with it as the protective instinct that wraps around that which we desire to protect. How does that relate to the everyday life? I think it's about being able to honour that protective instinct within us and give expression to it. So those rituals that we do through the course of the year, things like protecting our boundaries and like sweeping the boundaries with the broom, placing energetic protections in the things that we know are important to us, you know, the Hammer of Thor, right, you know, all of those rituals of protection are designed to recognize the treasure that those protective instincts, the value of that treasure, and to provide an outlet so that we channel that Thurisaz energy, and it doesn't sort of come up and go, oh, this, I feel threatened right now. It's to say, actually, I've already got those boundaries in place and those channels and those protections in place. It doesn't just have to be energetically. It can be things like just making sure that your locks are working well, and that your car has everything that it needs, so that and that your first aid kit is ready, and those sorts of things. Those sorts of preemptive, looking at practical protective measures that can be taken, they allow us to channel our Thurisaz energy, so it doesn't come through as this like deep emotional response when we feel threatened, because we've already done everything that we can, and we've already recognised the value of that which we're trying to protect. So energetic protections, but also just practical things that you can put in place that say, yes, I'm going to set up my thorns so that they feel as if they're doing their job, is what we're looking for there. Suzanne, you have Gibo, so I'm going to bring your attention back to what I said to Felicity with the Gibo rune. It's almost recognising when there is a duality, that the Gibo rune allows us to see how those things partner together, and that the unifying force for those feelings that we have of duality, with Felicity, I know I was talking about sort of talents and slightly different nuance there for you, Suzanne, but it might be more about, I know you do a lot of work with the light and the shadow self, and it's possibly about looking at what can the Gibo rune do to support me in that, and to recognise that those things, they are unified through me, and then how do I bring them out into the world so that I can partner more powerfully, so that I can partner more powerfully with destiny. You cannot be in my face. It's very difficult for me to do readings for people when you are in my face. So looking at, now that I have that, I've deepened into my sense of who I am, and the light side and the shadow side, similar to the Thurisaz rune, the more beautiful the road, the sharper the thorn. Sort of looking at that and saying, okay, I'm recognising those things within me. What is it that I'm now being called to do that means that I can express the gift of the Gibo rune, the gifts that I receive and the gifts that I give out into the world. Esther, you have Bacano, and you've got it as a Merc stave. So obviously we're moving into the half month of Bacano. There might be a sense there for you of not feeling protected with the Bacano rune coming through, of wanting that sense of security, and feeling that maybe it's not there in some way. And so looking at what are the feelings that might be prompting that sense of wanting to be sheltered. I'm feeling almost like a sort of cave-like structure. The Bacano rune is something we can think about it as being the sort of underground caves and grotto spaces that were often then dedicated to the goddess or to the ancestors, and that a desire for that form of protected space where we can say, here I'm safe. And I think it might be about saying, okay, what part of me needs that right now? Is it my child self? Is it my daughter self? Is it about myself, or is it about what I'm seeing out in the world? What part of me is being triggered into needing that and looking for that? And how can I honour that? How can I provide that sense of a contained and safe space? And it might be that that's done ritually in this case. It depends where it's coming up, and I'm not getting a sense there, Esther, of what the issue is. It's almost like you need to go in and do that and say, okay, where might I be feeling the need for protection right now? And once you know that, it'll be easier to put in place the protection that you need, and have a think about, I talked about that at the beginning of the live, about different forms of protection and the way in which we can offer that in the world. Oh no, I'm getting confused. Morning, Giba for me and Esther. Apologies. So Esther, I wrote it down there with the Giba rune. Bacano is for Marie. So everything that I've just said, that's for Marie. Who knows, Esther? Might be that's a little bit in there for you as well. And Yera for Chen. So it's nice that we've got some balancing runes here. So we've had the Bacano rune with its 2 triangles. If I've got the Bacano in here, I'll show it to you. We've got the Gibo rune, which is also that sense of duality of things coming together. And now we've got the Yera rune, which is a slower energy, the partnership of summer and winter. Oh, I don't have my Bacano rune in there. I only have a Rado rune, which is no good. Our Yera rune. I think that for me, this is about recognising that we can't be everything to everybody. So if you think about the Yera rune, and we've got winter, Vetra, and Sumar, summer, and they're circling each other. And, you know, summer can only express summer, and Vetra can only express winter, you know. They have to perform their own roles, and it's through that turning that they form that partnership. And sometimes they're seen as being a little bit of animosity between them, and yet their function is one that unifies and causes the cyclical wheel to turn. It's another manifestation of, I was talking about that Gibo energy, and it's almost like the Yera rune becomes the expression of that energy when we're able to find parts of ourselves that appear to be in conflict, and we say, okay, how do I express them out into the world? What's needed right now? Then we move into that Yera energy, which is the rune of harvest and manifestation and bringing great things to the world. So it's saying, you know, what do I need to choose now in this moment? And what do I need to trust that somebody else is going to manage and deal with? Because I can't take on all of the problems. So what is, you know, if you imagine that you are summer, you know, and you have all of the attributes of summer, you know, there's manifestation and abundance and warmth and vitality coming through, then you'll say, okay, what needs manifestation and warmth and vitality? And I will do that, and I will trust that Vetra, who does rest and replenishment and the death of the old and the making way, clearing space for the new, that somebody else who is better at that is going to do that. So whatever is happening in your life there, Chen, it might be a question of saying, okay, is there somebody else who can do this? And perhaps even just trusting that there is somebody else who can do this, that you don't have to take on everything. Then Lisa, you have Athala, and you had it yesterday and today, so it's a little bit of a strong one for you there. Because I'm feeling very much this sense of the individual and the collective coming through in this Middle Earth readings, I'm seeing Athala as being your land, your local land, and as being like the continent, you know, the continents upon which we are, and the way that they're working together in this collective sense of legacy. And it's reminding me in some ways, and maybe it's touching in on Chen's point. I've been reading some stories. I've been looking for good news stories because it's like I really need good news stories to keep me going in this at the moment. Stories about, you know, people founding community centres and people leaving out like buggies and prams for, you know, the people who are flooding Europe at the moment, and the fact that, you know, some people might be doing the, you know, I'm working on my local community centre and I'm doing that and that's important, or I'm raising money for charity over here and that's important, and others might be saying I'm thinking globally and I'm looking at my impact there and doing something important there. And I think what the Athala rune is really saying is, you know, again, you don't have to do everything. It's important to do something, and to say, you know, today I am doing this. Today I am contributing to the legacy that I want to leave for the world in this way. And it, you know, somebody else will be doing the bits that are important to me, and I trust that. So I think there is maybe a follow-on from Chen's reading there with the Yera rune, of looking at the Athala rune and saying, you know, today what legacy do I choose to leave? What act do I choose to take? Where do I choose to focus my attention and my time? Knowing that somebody else is doing that work somewhere else, and that if you see yourself not as an individual, but as part of a collective movement, that, you know, and believe that the tapestry, you know, each of our individual threads, they all intertwine. And if we have enough of us all weaving with that intention of supporting that Athala legacy, of being the ancestors that our successors are proud of, then we've done our bit. You know, so it's saying, you know, what can I do today? I don't have to do everything, but what can I do today? Karen, you've got Thurisaz. We've talked about Thurisaz. I'm going to invite you to look at that piece with the rose and the thorn. Shelley, 2 floor out before I chose. North is then Ingwaz, and I chose Ewaz. Ooh, North is Ingwaz, and I chose Ewaz. Don't really know which one, how to decide which one. Oh, they're all different to what we've got. Let me see what I can do with this. So, North is and Ingwaz came out together. And these are quite interesting. They're actually got a good, interesting relationship between them with the North's rune and the Ingwaz rune. This desire for something new is what I'm sensing with the two of them. I desire to make something new, to bring about something different in life. Comes through with the North's rune and the Ingwaz rune. So the Ingwaz rune is a seed, the North's rune of desire. They're pairing together and saying, it's like that sort of itchy feet, or the desire for, possibly because of the spring is coming. I'm not sure whereabouts you're located, Shelley, where we are in the UK. The sun is out at the moment, and it's like, birthing of something new. And then I would say that the Ewaz rune is suggesting the way forward with that, of saying, look for partnership. So whatever it is that you're feeling, that could be something that I could do that would be new. A really lovely way of honouring that will be to do that with somebody else. Whether that's a partner or a friend or a family member, and to say, is there something that we can do, a seed that we can sow, something that we can bring forth, that we can do together. So I think that's how those 3 runes work together. That came quite quickly. Normally I don't do 3 readings for people in these sessions, but that came through quite quickly. Diane, I'm feeling that I'm about to move into a new phase of life, so this is making a lot of sense to me. That's with your Hagalaz rune, isn't it, Diane? And Erica, we've got, I know my strengths and also where they end and where I need healthy boundaries. So good. I'm really happy that that's worked out for you. Claire, you've got Isa and Northis. So those 2 energies together might cause a little bit of tension for you, because you have Isa saying, which I've discussed with Erica, for like holding your space, feeling that stillness, knowing where your edges are, recognizing your strength. And then you've got the North's rune, that desire for change, and it's going to melt the ice in some way. So maybe it's looking for, there might be that there are some surprises where you need to be able to adapt. That you might be like, well, this is the way I've always done it before. This is my Isa space, and I'm feeling a little bit threatened right now by something that's being suggested with the North's fire coming through. So I think for me, it's about you taking a step back and saying, okay, again, I still get to choose. I recognise that I've got this North's flame saying you could do something different. It's licking my ear. You're licking my ear. Rude. I should stand up when I do these lives in the future, shouldn't I, really? This is ridiculous. So the Isa rune, you can choose to do that, but it might be tricky to do that, because the North's rune is going to be pulling, and there's going to be a sort of sense of people asking you to be maybe more flexible. Or you could say, yes, that's okay, and I'm willing to move forward and do something different. But if you do that, it's worth bearing in mind, what is it that your way, with the Isa rune, those established ways, and that's what is it that provides that is of value, because you don't want to lose the power of your Isa rune and bend too much to what other people want. So you don't want your Isa rune to be destroyed, but it's finding that way through that honours the Isa rune, that which you already know, strength, stability, your experience, and the North's rune that's demanding something different and saying, okay, what I need to do is I need to work. I need to adapt, but I need to do so still honouring my experience in that moment. I hope that that's helpful. Shelley says, my first flying rune was Gibo. Well, Shelley, I am going to stick with what we did, just for the sake of time, and also because I've covered Gibo quite a lot in this session. So you can have a little listen to the Gibo rune. And I think recognising the alchemy of different things coming together is still important. So the Ewaz rune and the Gibo rune work quite well together. No, Marie has Bacano. Why am I getting things wrong? And Esther has Gibo. Okay, well, I've done Bacano, I've done Gibo. Let's work on the assumption that the right people are going to get the right advice for these rune readings. Diane says, Kidney's Gordon want to help. He does want to help. I don't think there was any confusion other than me probably reading it wrong, Suzanne, so don't worry about it at all. What else have we got? Shelley, you're in Denmark. Okay, so maybe the spring will still be there with the light. Maybe is what we're looking for more than the warmth at this point. Lisa says, definitely how I'm feeling at the moment. Okay, good, Shelley, I'm glad that was helpful for you. Thank you, because obviously we've overrun because I started late with the problems that I was having with the computer. So thank you to those of you who have stayed until the end. It's been lovely to see you all. Shelley says the readings made so much sense. Good, I'm glad that it totally resonated. So yes, weird wove, regardless of who got what runes and in what order and all of those things. So that's wonderful. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on a Tuesday. We'll be resuming our normal service on a Monday, next Monday. And I look forward to seeing many of you on the Inner Circle on Friday, when we're going to be looking at our story with the god Mani. And also, thank you, I know that there are a few of you on here who are working with me on Birth Rune's Soul Journey, just to say I am loving the new this new programme that we're working on together. And I hope that you're enjoying it too. So lovely to see everybody. See you all again very soon.